The food did not disappear first, the family did. Sunday supper began to fade when the house stopped waiting for everyone to come home. There was a time when Sunday had a smell before it had a schedule. Ham was glazing in the oven. Chicken skin was turning gold. Gravy was darkening in a pan. Potatoes were being mashed until steam covered the kitchen window. And somewhere in that house, a mother or grandmother had already been awake for hours. Not because she wanted to impress anyone, because Sunday supper was the one meal of the week that still had gravity. People came to it. Children came in from the yard. Fathers came in from the garage. Grandparents arrived carrying dishes covered in foil. Even teenagers sat down, although they sometimes acted like they would rather be anywhere else. For 1 hour, sometimes 2, everybody belonged to the same table. Today we are counting down 25 Sunday suppers that once brought American families home. The meal at number 19 could begin with one small can from the pantry, then stretch far enough to help feed a family. And the meal at number 1 was never just food. Its smell reached every room in the house and told everyone the same thing. The family is home. We begin at number 25 with pineapple-glazed ham. A large ham was scored across the surface, brushed with brown sugar and mustard, then decorated with pineapple rings, cherries, and whole cloves. Today, it can look a little dramatic. But in the 1970s, pineapple made an ordinary table feel almost tropical. As the ham baked, the glaze became thick and sticky. The edges turned dark and sweet. Every slice tasted smoky, salty, and almost like candy around the outside. But the real genius of Sunday ham appeared after the plates were cleared. The leftover slices became sandwiches. Small pieces went into casseroles, and the bone became bean soup. A Sunday ham was not one dinner, it was a plan for the week. That was the quiet intelligence of old family cooking. Abundance did not mean wasting more, it meant making one thing last. Next on the countdown, at number 24, tuna noodle casserole. Egg noodles, cream of mushroom soup, a can of tuna, a handful of peas, and crushed crackers or potato chips across the top. That was often all it needed. When the casserole came out of the oven, the edges were bubbling and the top had turned crisp and golden. Children wanted the crunchy corners. Parents knew that one small can of tuna had somehow become enough for everyone. People sometimes call meals like this lazy cooking, but they were not lazy. They were practical, flexible, and smart. The basic recipe may have come from the back of a package, but every household changed it. One family added cheese, another added celery. Someone used crackers because the potato chips were already gone. A company could print the instructions, only a family could turn them into memory. Coming in at number 23, roast chicken with pan gravy. Before fried chicken arrived in a cardboard bucket, a whole chicken often sat at the center of Sunday dinner. It did not need complicated seasoning: butter, salt, pepper, maybe an onion or a little sage inside. Then it needed time. The skin slowly tightened and turned gold while the smell moved through the house. But the greatest treasure was what remained at the bottom of the roasting pan. The drippings, the dark pieces stuck to the metal. A little flour and broth turned those scraps into rich brown gravy. That gravy went over the chicken, the potatoes, the stuffing, the vegetables, and any bread close enough to catch it. Old kitchens understood one simple rule: never throw away what still has flavor. At number 22, we have a meal built to make tough beef feel special: country fried steak. A cheap piece of beef was pounded thin, coated in seasoned flour, and fried until the outside became crisp and brown. Then the steak came out of the skillet, but the cooking was not finished. Flour went into the drippings. Milk followed, then salt and plenty of black pepper. Within minutes, the same pan held a thick cream gravy that softened the crust and flowed into the mashed potatoes beside it. People often say old American food was heavy. It was, but the lives surrounding it could be heavy too. These meals fed people who worked on their feet, worked with their hands, raised large families, and stretched every paycheck. The food was not trying to be light, it was trying to hold people up. And taking the 21st spot, meatloaf with ketchup glaze. Ground beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, onion, milk, and seasoning. Then it was shaped into a loaf and covered with ketchup, brown sugar, and mustard. Meatloaf was never elegant. It understood its job too well to care about elegance. The breadcrumbs made the beef go farther. The egg held everything together. And the sweet red glaze made a plain loaf feel special enough for Sunday. The meal kept working after the plates were cleared. A thick slice could be reheated the next day, or eaten cold between two pieces of white bread. For many people, a cold meatloaf sandwich is not simply a leftover. It is the sound of the refrigerator opening, the feel of wax paper, and the memory of someone standing nearby in a kitchen that no longer exists. The first 5 meals reveal something important. The old Sunday kitchen did not begin with expensive ingredients. It began with time, attention, and the refusal to waste what the family already had. But the next group went even further. These were the meals that could transform an old chicken, a cheap pork chop, or one small can from the pantry into enough food for a crowded table. Now, at number 20, chicken and dumplings. This meal often began with a chicken that was too old and tough for quick cooking. It could not be rushed. It had to simmer slowly until the meat softened and the broth turned deep gold. Then came the dumplings. Some families dropped in soft spoonfuls of biscuit dough. Others rolled the dough flat and cut it into strips. As the dumplings cooked, they absorbed the broth and thickened the entire pot. What began as a tough bird and a handful of flour became one of the warmest meals imaginable. Chicken and dumplings did not need decoration. It steamed up your glasses, it warmed you from the chest outward, and it told everyone at the table that there was enough for one more bowl. Coming in at number 19 is the meal we promised at the beginning: salmon croquettes. One small can of pink salmon could be stretched into enough patties to help feed a family. The salmon went into a bowl with an egg, chopped onion, cracker crumbs, and simple seasoning. Even the soft bones were often mashed into the mixture instead of being thrown away. The patties were shaped by hand and fried until the outside became brown and crisp. Inside they stayed soft, salty, and rich. If there was a lemon in the house, a little juice made everything taste brighter. Salmon croquettes were emergency food that did not taste like an emergency. The crumbs stretched the fish, the bones added nourishment, and the skillet created a crust that made a pantry ingredient feel fresh. The next dish turned an ordinary pork chop into a small Sunday ceremony. At number 18, stuffed pork chops. A pocket was cut into a thick chop. Bread stuffing went inside with butter, onion, celery, and sage. The chop was browned, then baked slowly with a little broth. The first cut was the moment everyone waited for. Steam rose from the center. The smell of sage moved across the plate. It carried the same warmth as holiday stuffing, only on an ordinary Sunday. When the meat was limited, old cooks did not simply serve less, they expanded it. Bread, vegetables, butter, and seasoning turned a few pork chops into something that looked generous. The ingredients were not expensive, the attention was. At number 17, we reach one of the most divisive meals on this entire list: liver and onions. Some people hear the name and immediately remember the smell. Others remember pushing it around the plate and hoping nobody noticed. But liver was once chosen for good reasons. It was affordable, filling, and nourishing. The secret was not to overcook it. Thin slices were dusted in flour and browned quickly. The onions were cooked much more slowly until they became soft, sweet, and almost like jam. When both were prepared well, the onions balanced the deep flavor of the liver. When they were prepared badly, one meal could create a lifelong enemy. We did not stop eating liver because it stopped feeding us. We stopped because our idea of desirable food changed. The nutrition stayed, the appetite disappeared. Holding the number 16 spot, Salisbury steak with mushroom gravy. Salisbury steak took ordinary ground beef and dressed it for company. The beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, onion, and a splash of savory sauce. Then it was shaped into oval patties and browned in a skillet. After the patties came out, mushrooms and onions went into the same pan. Not a clean pan, the same pan, because the brown pieces at the bottom held the flavor. Beef broth loosened them, a little flour thickened the sauce, and suddenly, 1 pound of hamburger felt almost like a steakhouse meal. That feeling mattered. A little gravy could make the whole table feel richer. Mashed potatoes could fill the plate. And for one evening, nobody needed to think about how small the grocery budget had been. The next meals belonged to a different kind of kitchen magic. They took leftovers, ordinary noodles, cold rice, and inexpensive beef, then gave them a completely new identity, because old family cooking rarely announced, "Here are yesterday's leftovers." It said, "Tonight, we are having something special." Now we move into the top 15, beginning with beef stroganoff over egg noodles. The name sounded elegant before the first ingredient even entered the pan. Stroganoff. It sounded like something from a hotel dining room, or a cookbook with glossy photographs. But the family version used familiar ingredients: beef, mushrooms, onions, broth, mustard, and sour cream. The beef was browned first. The mushrooms softened in the same pan. Then the sauce was finished with sour cream after the heat was lowered. That small detail mattered. Do not boil the sour cream. Old kitchens were filled with little rules like that. Do not rush the onions. Do not cut the roast too early. Do not lift the lid before the rice is ready. Nobody needed to write every rule down. Someone showed you once, and you remembered. The recipe fed the family, but the knowledge behind it was an inheritance. At number 14 is a dish that began with the remains of another Sunday meal: scalloped potatoes and ham. A little leftover ham, several potatoes, milk, butter, flour, salt and pepper. The potatoes were sliced thin and layered in a baking dish. Pieces of ham were scattered between them. A simple white sauce went over the top. Then everything baked until the potatoes softened and the surface became golden and brown around the edges. The corners were always the best part. Every family knew it. That was where the sauce became thick, the potatoes almost melted, and the ham turned salty and crisp. Scalloped potatoes and ham told the whole truth about the old Sunday kitchen. The first meal mattered, but the second meal proved the household knew how to survive. Leftovers were not evidence that dinner had failed. They were evidence that dinner had worked. We are almost halfway through the countdown. At number 13, glorified rice. If you did not grow up with it, the ingredients may sound a little strange. Cold cooked rice, crushed pineapple, miniature marshmallows, whipped cream, maybe cherries, maybe nuts. It lived somewhere between a side dish and a dessert. And nobody seemed worried about deciding which one. Glorified rice was soft, cool, sweet, and inexpensive. It brought color to a table filled with roasted meat, potatoes, and brown gravy. It made children smile, and it turned leftover rice into something that felt like a treat. Old food was not always designed to look beautiful in a photograph. It was designed for a room filled with people. A family meal has more than one job. It feeds the body. But sometimes, it also needs to lift the mood. The next dish gave yesterday's chicken a completely new identity. At number 12, chicken a la king. Pieces of cooked chicken were folded into a creamy sauce with mushrooms, peas, and red peppers. Then the mixture was served over toast, biscuits, rice, or pastry shells. The colors made it feel special. White sauce, green peas, red peppers, golden bread. Looked like care. The cook did not place yesterday's chicken on the table and apologize. She changed its identity. The meal did not say, "We are eating the same bird again." It said, "Tonight, we are having something elegant." That transformation required very little extra meat, only imagination, just outside the top 10. At number 11, chicken pot pie. Chicken pot pie often began with what remained after a roast. Small pieces of chicken, a little broth, carrots, peas, potatoes, and whatever vegetables the kitchen needed to use. Everything went beneath a crust or a layer of biscuit dough. Then it baked until the filling bubbled and the top turned deep gold. The first spoonful released a cloud of steam. The gravy was thick, the vegetables were soft, and the pieces of chicken seemed more generous because they were surrounded by everything else. Chicken pot pie was leftovers hidden beneath a fresh crust. It did not feel like a repeat. It felt like a second beginning. The pattern is clear. These meals were not random old recipes. They were a system for making food go farther. A system for turning yesterday's scraps into tomorrow's comfort. And a system for giving an ordinary family the feeling of abundance, even when money was tight. And now, we enter the final 10. At number 10, beef and noodles over mashed potatoes. No modern nutrition guide would design this meal. Noodles over mashed potatoes, gravy over both. And beef cooked until it fell apart. It was comfort stacked on comfort. And the Midwest never apologized. The beef simmered slowly until it could be pulled apart with a fork. Egg noodles cooked in the broth and absorbed all of its flavor. Then the beef, noodles, and gravy were ladled over a mound of buttered mashed potatoes. This was farm country food. Food for people who measured hunger honestly because their work demanded honesty. It was not light. It was not delicate. But it told the body something important. You are safe now. You can stop working, sit down, and eat. Coming in at number 9 is the dish whose corner pieces always disappeared first. Baked macaroni and cheese. Before powdered cheese became the fastest option, macaroni and cheese came out of the oven in a heavy baking dish. Cooked macaroni was mixed with a real cheese sauce or a rich mixture of milk and eggs. Sharp cheddar went inside, more cheese went across the top. Some families added buttered breadcrumbs. Then the dish baked until the surface became brown and the edges turned crisp and chewy. The corner pieces were always the first to disappear. They were where the cheese darkened against the dish and the noodles became almost toasted. Inside, everything remained soft, rich, and creamy. The person serving it usually knew exactly which relative wanted the corner. That is something family tables once remembered. Not only what each person ate, but which part they loved most. At number 8, Sunday dinner begins to feel a little grander. Roast beef with Yorkshire pudding. The beef roasted until the outside became dark and crusted while the center remained pink. Then it had to rest. Cutting it too early meant losing the juices. While the roast rested, the hot beef drippings went into a pan. A simple batter of eggs, flour, and milk was poured into the fat. In the oven, it rose into something crisp, golden, and almost impossible looking. Yorkshire pudding was not a sweet dessert. It was made to catch gravy. The edges shattered. The soft center absorbed every drop. This meal asked the family to wait. Wait for the beef. Wait for the pudding. Wait until everybody had been served. Patience was not an inconvenience. It was part of the meal. The seventh spot belongs to a meal that many families could recognize from the sound of the skillet alone. Sunday fried chicken. Sunday fried chicken did not begin at a drive-through window. It began with buttermilk, seasoned flour, and a black iron skillet. Pieces of chicken were soaked, coated heavily, and lowered into hot fat. Then they cooked slowly. Too much heat burned the crust before the inside was ready. Too little heat made the coating greasy. The cook learned to listen to the sound of the oil, to the change in color, to the feeling of the crust when the chicken was turned. When the platter finally reached the table, the outside was deep brown and crisp. The meat stayed juicy underneath, but people rarely remember only the chicken. They remember who made it. A mother who never measured the flour. A grandmother who knew the oil was ready without a thermometer. The meal came with a kitchen, a name, and a pair of hands attached to the memory. At number 6 is a dish that used time to do what money could not. Swiss steak. Swiss steak did not come from Switzerland. It was an American way of making a tough piece of beef tender enough for Sunday. Browned steak was pounded, coated with flour, and browned in a skillet. Then it was covered with tomatoes, onions, peppers, and a little broth. The pan went into the oven or stayed on low heat for hours. Slowly, the meat softened. The tomatoes became a thick red gravy. And a cut that might have been difficult to chew became tender enough to break with a fork. Swiss steak was patience applied to inexpensive beef. Nothing flashy, nothing wasted. Just time doing what money could not. Now we have reached the final 5. These meals were more than familiar food. They were the dishes that made the whole afternoon feel different. The meals people smelled from another room. The meals that made children walk into the kitchen and ask, "How much longer?" And the meal at number 1 contained almost everything the old Sunday table was trying to protect. At number 5, baked chicken and rice. This was one of the quietest meals on the list, but also one of the most dependable. Chicken pieces were placed over rice with broth, onion, butter, and simple seasoning. Sometimes a can of soup went into the dish. Sometimes celery or mushrooms were added. Then the pan baked slowly. The chicken juices moved down into the rice. The rice absorbed the broth. And the bottom of the dish developed a dark, savory layer that people scraped up with a spoon. Baked chicken and rice did not require constant attention. That mattered on Sundays when there were children to dress, church to attend, and a house to straighten before relatives arrived. The oven did most of the work, but when the pan came to the table, it still smelled as though someone had been caring for it all afternoon. Taking the 4th spot is one of the simplest sweet and savory combinations on the Sunday table. Pork roast with applesauce. A pork roast was rubbed with salt, pepper, and sometimes garlic or herbs. Then it cooked slowly until the outside browned and the fat became crisp around the edges. Beside it sat applesauce, cool, sweet, and slightly sharp. The combination was simple, but it worked. The sweetness of the apples balanced the richness of the pork. Pan gravy went over the potatoes. The roast was sliced at the table. And any meat left behind could become sandwiches, hash, or another casserole. Like so many Sunday meals, the roast did not stop working when dinner ended. It followed the family into the next day. We have reached the final 3. At number 3, roast turkey with bread stuffing. Turkey did not belong only to Thanksgiving. In many homes, a smaller bird appeared for Sunday dinner when the family was large or relatives were visiting. The turkey roasted while bread stuffing absorbed butter, onion, celery, sage, and the juices from the bird. The skin turned brown. The house filled with the smell of a holiday, even when there was no holiday. Then came the carving, white meat for one person, dark meat for another, crisp skin for whoever reached the platter first. The stuffing carried the flavor of everything around it, and the gravy connected the entire plate. A Sunday turkey made an ordinary week feel important. It said that the people arriving at the table were worth the trouble. Only one meal stands between us and the most important Sunday supper on the list. At number 2, pot roast with carrots and potatoes. This was the meal that transformed a tough piece of beef through nothing more than heat, moisture, and patience. A chuck roast was browned first. Then onions, carrots, potatoes, and broth went into the pot. The lid went on, and for several hours, the house slowly changed. The smell began in the kitchen, then it reached the hallway, then the living room. By the time the meat was ready, it could be pulled apart with a fork. The vegetables had absorbed the broth, and the cooking liquid had become gravy. Pot roast was not fast food, but it was forgiving food. It did not need expensive beef. It needed enough time for a hard piece of meat to become soft. There is something almost symbolic about that. Pressure made it tough. Patience made it tender. And finally, the meal at number 1. Not simply one recipe, but the entire Sunday event. The full Sunday roast with all the trimmings. The roast might have been beef, pork, ham, chicken, or turkey. What mattered was everything built around it. Mashed potatoes with a space in the center for gravy. A green vegetable, stuffing or dressing, hot rolls with butter, a small dish of pickles or relish, and somewhere nearby, a pie cooling for later. The cooking often began before church. The smell filled the house while the family was away. And when everyone returned, the meal was already waiting. That smell reached the bedrooms, the hallway, the front porch. Children knew what day it was without looking at a calendar. At the table, the roast was carved while everyone waited. Bowls moved from one pair of hands to another. Nobody began until everyone had been served. Grandparents sat beside grandchildren. Parents asked about the week. Teenagers sat down even if they would rather have been somewhere else. For 1 hour, sometimes 2, the family occupied the same room. The food was not always perfect. The people were not always happy. And the past was never as simple as nostalgia makes it appear. Many of the women preparing these meals were exhausted. Many families carried problems that never appeared in photographs. We do not need to pretend everything was better. But the old Sunday roast protected something that many families are still trying to recover. It protected time, it protected attention, and it protected the idea that once in a while, everyone should be expected in the same room. The real centerpiece was never only the roast. It was the fact that everybody sat down before it got cold. The old Sunday supper did not disappear in one dramatic moment. Nobody gathered the family together and announced that the tradition was over. It vanished slowly, one busy weekend at a time, one sports practice, one extra shift at work, one meal eaten in the car, one television tray, one phone carried to the table. Convenience was not the enemy. Convenience often rescued tired families. Sometimes convenience is simply what love uses when it is exhausted. But anything that saves time eventually asks a question: what will you do with the time you saved? For a while, faster meals helped families reach the table sooner. Then the table itself became optional. Dinner moved to the couch, then to the car, then to separate rooms. The meal became faster and faster until it stopped being a gathering and became a refueling stop. That is what these old dishes were really holding together. Not only hunger, They held a clock, a place, and a reason to come home. Food becomes a clock when it tells the family when to return. It becomes a map when it tells children where they belong. And it becomes a memory when, decades later, one smell can return a person to a house that no longer exists. You may forget what people talked about at the table. You may forget what the weather was like outside. You may even forget the exact year. But you remember the gravy, the orange glow of the casserole dish, the sound of a knife passing through a crisp crust, the way your mother turned the chicken without looking, the way your grandfather carved the roast as though it were his responsibility to hold the entire room together. So think back for a moment. What dish brought your family to the table? Was it fried chicken? Meatloaf? Chicken and dumplings? Tuna casserole? A glazed ham? Or something only your family knew how to make? Write the name of that dish in the comments. But do not stop with the recipe. Tell us who cooked it. Because sometimes the food is not the most important part of the memory. Sometimes it is the name attached to it. And if this story brought back a kitchen, a table, a person, or a Sunday afternoon you had not thought about in years, subscribe to the channel. We are not only remembering old food here, we are remembering the lives that gathered around it.